I'd like to go over before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. A link to today's slide presentation was included in the reminder email that you received from Zoom about an hour ago. To download it, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the link located there. You can also download the slides by typing the URL on this screen into your web browser. You, the audience, are in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions that you might have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have questions or if you need technical assistance, just click the Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable them on your screen, please look for and click the Show Captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of them at any time by clicking the Captions setting. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful program for you today, so let's begin by meeting today's presenters. When Erin Emser was a child, she frequently delivered reading lessons to her makeshift classroom of stuffed animals. So it was no surprise when she received her bachelor's in secondary education from Bowling Green State University. She spent the next 5 years teaching high school English to animate teenage humans in a rural school district surrounded by corn, and completed her master's in library and information sciences at Kent State University with a specialization and licensure in K-12 school librarian media. Erin is now a digital content librarian at Overdrive and enjoys helping librarians in Texas and other states build and maintain their digital collections in an effort to spread the love of education and reading to all. She also enjoys no longer living near corn. Catherine Asink's love of libraries started in her middle school book club, where her school librarian made them an ice cream waffle breakfast for their discussion of the book, Everything on a Waffle. She started working for her public library as a page when she was 16 and worked there while she earned her AYA English education degree from Baldwin Wallace University. After that, she moved to Toledo, where she worked as a children's librarian and earned her MLIS with K-12 licensure from Kent State University. When Catherine has free time, she enjoys reading and making princess dresses for her daughter Penelope. Franklin Markle grew up in the wonderful world of fantasy, spending times with demigods, sorcerers, and the occasional superhero. After realizing he would probably never do real magic, he decided to do the next best thing: spread the magic of books he loved. Franklin received his Bachelor of Library Science and MLIS with a focus in youth services from Clarion University. He went on to work in the public library space as a youth services librarian before landing at Overdrive, where he continues to spread the magic of books to all the schools he serves as digital content librarian. Thank you so much for joining us, Erin, Catherine, and Franklin. The floor is yours.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Erin, and I have been a digital content librarian for Sora and Overdrive for a little over 5 years now. But prior to that, as you heard, I was a high school English teacher. So my brain is already wired to make budgets stretch as far as they can, especially in the education space. So let's get started and go to our next slide. So you're probably here, and you can kind of click through to the next half too. You're probably here because you have a digital collection and you want to stretch that budget. So this slide here might be a little bit redundant, but there are still folks out there who see digital as an inferior medium, and I get it. In a world where phones and screens just like consume our kids' attention, it's hard to spend our precious budgets on something, yet another thing that is going to keep their eyes on a screen instead of a print book. But when we look at the larger scheme of equity and accessibility, digital really does take the cake in that market. There's no forgetting a book at home, or my dog ate it, or someone using a slice of cheese as a bookmark. That doesn't happen in digital. And for some titles, we'll also, as we'll talk about later, there's no running out of copies as well. And specifically with our product Sora, the reading settings are all customizable: font, style, size, there's screen reader support. We have a new Read to Me feature for accessibility as well. So these are things that are taking digital to a new level far beyond print books. We can go to the next slide, please. So let's talk lending models. If you are already a purchaser of digital content, you know that publishers have their own lending models that they adhere to, and you'll see a couple available when you're purchasing a title. Like I said, each publisher can, and even just individual title can be a little bit different. So sometimes this does require some strategic thinking about the specific use case of the title and your goal as a library. So are you just building a pleasure reading library? Are you trying to teach a grade-wide curricular title? Do you just want to have a title available for checkout in case it happens to catch a student's eye? These are all things that you should be considering when you're purchasing. We can go to the next slide where I will break these down a little bit more. So as you've probably come across, publishers try to mimic print as much as they can by selling their titles in one copy, one user, and or a metered access lending model. In our eyes, OCOU is kind of the holy grail because it's the equivalent of an ever-present, indestructible, uncheesable book. But unfortunately, it is a for-profit business, and that doesn't benefit many publishers that it lasts forever. So it is becoming more frequent to see titles metered either by time or by checkout by use, while still mimicking that one copy to one person ratio. The good thing, though, is with this shift, a lot of audiobooks are still in that OCOU lending model. So while they're a little bit more expensive than an ebook, it's a lot easier to build an audio library that won't expire. Another great thing is that many of the publishers that do offer their content in OCOU also often participate in our sales. So getting those perpetual titles can be even cheaper, depending on the time of year. And I would be remiss not to mention that our biggest sale of the year, the back to school sale, is happening right now until the end of September. So I've included a QR code should you want to shop from some of the titles if you are an Overdrive partner already. The titles that I've included on the little iPads on the screen are also OCOU ebooks that are included in this sale as well. So take a look at that. There are some really great titles in there. Go to our next slide. One of our relatively newer lending models is a concurrent use lending model that can be accessed by multiple students at the same time. And the great thing about this is that it stays in your collection until it's checked out, typically 100 times. The Harry Potter books are 50, but everything else is 100. You might hear this referred to as MACU, MA100, which is how it will look when you're shopping in our marketplace, or Overdrive Max, which is kind of branding from our marketing team. But regardless of what it is called, this is easily one of my favorite lending models when it is available. It helps you fulfill holds very quickly. So if you have like 60 kids waiting on one copy, they each get their own individual copy and opportunity to check it out. It only expires after it's used, so you know that you're getting your money's worth. And if you have a book club or a choice reading assignment, it's an easy way to ensure that students have access at the same time. When I work with schools who need a title and it's available in this lending model, my heart does a little flutter because it is the most school-friendly metered access that we offer, in my opinion. And what's very exciting is that this lending model is now available for Scholastic's backlist. They previously didn't offer this. So all of the titles that you know kids already love, The Dog Man, The Babysitter's Club, they are now available at a very reasonable price for that concurrent use lending model. We can go to the next slide, please. Now, let's say that you have a title that you're not sure is going to be interesting to your students, or maybe you have an audiobook on your state list that you've never even heard of, but you still want to make it available. Maybe you have ESL students and you want to give them some options without buying a 2-year lending model copy. CPC might just be your answer. CPC stands for cost per circulation, and it kind of allows you to cherry pick and strategize which titles you want available to your students. Essentially, instead of buying copies, you're just turning these on, and you only get charged a fraction of the full copy price, typically a couple of dollars, when it's checked out by a student. And you can also set a monthly budget that if you don't want to exceed X amount of dollars, you won't. And very soon, we're also going to have the ability to, instead of just all of your titles, you can set individual titles budgets so that they don't exceed that. So you don't have to worry about your students draining your funding on a title that maybe you didn't anticipate had so much interest. And additionally, if you do also own these titles in a different lending model, CPC is the one that's used last. So let's say maybe you do have a metered access 2-year copy of Wonder and some CPC, you can also use those, and it will help with any like ebbs and flows in interest levels from your students. And I will admit that in the past, I was a little hesitant about CPC. But now that budgets have been cut kind of nationwide, I have found myself turning more towards this option, especially for audiobooks for older readers, especially for diverse titles that aren't as buzzworthy as like the newest Dogman or the newest Karen McManus title, but you still want them available for students. I've been turning to those to just make sure that students are getting access at a way lower price. Next slide, please. And another lending model that is always sought after is simultaneous use, which is essentially an all-access subscription, typically for a year, of a singular title or a package of titles. These are really nice because they're one flat price. They can be used for as many students as you want, whenever you want. So these are great for click-happy littles, students with a lower reading level, because there's a lot of elementary content, juvenile nonfiction, and the classics. So if you're doing a grade-wide read and a title is available in that simultaneous use option, it is a no-brainer to use that lending model. Then you can just take the direct link to the title, pop it in your Google Classroom or whatever you use, and the students can then just click on it and access it very easily. Now, not every publisher offers simultaneous use content. It's really only a handful that do. And if they do, they typically do also offer in that MACU MA100 model as well. So again, consider your purpose with your titles, be strategic about them. And our simultaneous use portal also requires that you purchase by publisher, which can be a little difficult to kind of just browse simply. So luckily, you'll have access to, as an Overdrive partner, you'll have access to a digital content librarian, myself, Catherine, Franklin, some of our colleagues. And you will also have the opportunity to browse or purchase some handcrafted solutions to make life a little bit easier for you. So I will actually hand it over to Franklin to talk about those solutions.
Okay. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, there we go. Hi guys. Yep, I'm Franklin. As Aaron said, I'm going to be talking to you about some of our subscription options. So first, I just wanted to ask everyone a question. Have you ever thought to yourself, wow, I have so much time and money on my hands? Anyone? No? Yeah, no, me either. Next slide, please. So I get it. budgeting for developing and managing a digital collection on top of your physical collection and all of your other daily duties. Yeah, it's not always feasible, but it doesn't change the fact that a lot of us need or just want digital content for our libraries. So what options are there to help? Well, that's where the Sora subscriptions come in play. The short and dirty of it is that Sora subscriptions are just an easy and budget-friendly way to make sure your digital collection remains fresh and accessible with honestly very minimal effort on your part. Right now, we have 4 subscriptions under our All Access family. These are, again, always available content, so that simultaneous use that Aaron was talking about, in a mix of fiction and nonfiction and a variety of grade bands. We have those 4 subscriptions are comics, magazines, phonics and decodables, and then our kids building blocks library. We also have another subscription that will add regular editions of popular new release ebooks and audiobooks. These are not simultaneous use, but they do help build your collection, again, with not much effort on your part. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits, right? Exactly is this going to save me time and money? So this always available content, the simultaneous use content, means that your students don't need to place holds. No holds means you no longer need to purchase additional copies to fill those holds. Plus, it enables your students to read more when they're not having to wait for the titles they're interested in. 2, pre-made embedded collections allow you to really dedicate as much or as little time as you want to managing your collection. You always have the option to adjust content access levels, to weed titles as you see fit, to curate them and make them more visible, but you don't have to, because a lot of that is already done for you. And then finally, as you are bundling subscriptions, you choose 1, you choose 2, you choose all of them, you're going to get some cost savings. So not only are you like building a really large collection, you're doing it for less. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go over briefly what it all is in these subscriptions. So we're going to start first with the All Access Comics. Right now, we have 3 options in this package. They are the lower grade, the middle grade, and upper grade collection. You can purchase 1, you can purchase 2, you can purchase all 3. And in total, there are over 2,000 titles across the 3 grade bands. Each package contains titles from top name publishers that we all know, like Marvel, Disney, Dark Horse, etc. And all the titles have been reviewed by our team of librarians to ensure general age and school appropriateness. You can expect to see titles like My Little Pony, Disney's Frozen, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Minecraft, Avengers, Halo, Zelda, etc., etc. So there's a lot of name recognition in there. Next slide, please. For our magazine subscription, right now we have over 300 titles. This includes one-off titles, but periodical publications as well. So even though it's 300, you really get more of that because you get the back issues of those periodical publications. There are a ton of different topics in this package. I'm talking things like pop culture magazines, history magazines, knitting magazines, equestrian, science, woodworking. Again, so many in there. So there really is something there for pretty much every student. And again, just like the comics, these are reviewed for general age and school appropriateness. A pro tip is that magazine and comic checkouts do not count towards your students' checkout limits. So they could check out really as many of these as they want and still be able to check out your traditional ebook, audiobook for their pleasure reading or for class reading or whatever it need be. So it doesn't upset that at all. And with these 2 packages as well, they are ever growing. So we do add new titles to them 3 times a year for no additional cost as well. Next slide, please. Our next package is the Supersonic Phonics and Decodables. This is over 200 fiction and nonfiction titles. They support early literacy initiatives that are backed by the science of reading and are published by Bearport and Jump. Bearport and Jump also provide free teaching guides and reading skill charts, as well as correlations and decodability reports. So this is a great package for supplementing your already existing phonics program, or even starting a new one. With the resources that the publishers provide, it really does make it easy. Next slide, please. And then this is our last all access package. This is our all access kids building blocks library. So this contains over 800 titles for lower grade students, over 5 different themed categories. So we have emotional well-being, we have nonfiction graphic novels, animals and nature, STEM, and beginning readers. I think this is probably the easiest subscription of them all. With just like a few choices, you can really get a complete nonfiction juvenile collection. Again, with very, very little effort. I'm gonna keep saying that because it's true. You don't have to put too much in to get a lot. Our beginning readers package right now is our most popular, with good reason. I've looked into several of the schools that I work with in California, and one thing I keep noticing is that their beginning readers circulate well above how many titles they actually have in their collections. Most of the time, somewhere between a 10-to-1 or 20-to-1 ratio. So your kids are going to be reading these. So why not give them, more options that they're not going to have to wait for? Because again, they're simultaneous use. Next slide, please. So just to recap, all of these packages together really create a multi-thousand title collection. They're high interest titles, they have curricular tie-in, they're all vetted and approved by our librarians, and again, all 4 are simultaneous use. So your students will never have to wait, never have to put a hold on them. They can just check them out and go. Next slide, please. And then this is the other subscription package that I mentioned before. This one's not simultaneous use. However, it is still just as important. So this is our new release ebooks and audiobooks. We have a few different options here. A subscription of either monthly, quarterly, or biannual editions in either ebooks, audiobooks, or both. So each month, each quarter, whatever you choose, you'll be provided with a cart of new editions of the most popular new release titles across grade bands and in a variety of genres. You always have the option to review these and make adjustments as needed. So if you wanted to remove a title or adjust copy counts, increase them or lower them, you have the option to do that before they're added to your collection. This is a really easy way to cover those new release buzzy books that your kids are going to want to read. And then combining this with the all access subscriptions can really make a well-rounded collection that doesn't break the bank. Next slide, please. So that's really it for me. For more detailed information, I really do encourage you to reach out to your dedicated Sora team. We can provide pricing, full title lists, and any more information that you might need. And with that, I think I'm passing it over to Catherine.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm going to switch off from pleasure reading into curriculum titles. We're going to talk about titles that you can get for class sets, for classroom reading, choice reading in those curriculum spaces. And hopefully you can use your curriculum budget for that, so you have more for your pleasure reading library. So we're going to talk about class sets. So what are they and how do you use them? Next slide, please. So what is a digital class set? In a traditional paper publishing world, class set, you might think of, oh, I order one class set, I get 30 copies of the same book. In the digital world, it's really just a different type of lending model that the publishers provide for us.
Titles are checked out automatically for 90 days. So your students have plenty of time to use them. We're doing that equity. We're making sure that they have the access to the title they need for as long as they need it. One thing to note is some titles may be available for shorter or longer periods, but typically they're a 90-day loan. My favorite part of this is the titles can't be returned early. So there's no, oh, I accidentally returned it, I can't get it anymore. Nope, it is in their account until the 90 days are up. And it also doesn't count towards their loan limits. So if they have a class set title in their account, they can still check out their pleasure reading books with no issues. It's in its own separate section of Sora. So in Sora, they will find all their class sets under assignments at this top section of their students' home screen. So they're super easy to find. Prices range from 99 cents to $5.50 a copy. And only 3 publishers have a set minimum. And these are Hachette has a 5-copy minimum, and Scholastic and Macmillan have a 10-copy minimum. Basically, that means besides those 3 publishers, a class set in the digital world could be 1 copy of a book. Let's say you have a teacher that comes to you, I have a student who needs a large print, we don't have that. Well, let's get them a class set copy so they can enlarge that print font for them, and they have access to it. Next slide, please. So there are 2 types of class sets, what I'm going to call the traditional class set and then the on-demand class set, also known as ODCS. Next slide. So which option is going to work best? Well, it depends. It's kind of dependent on what are you using it for, and how do you need it. So a regular class set, you assign the books directly to the students and you set an access start date. On-demand class sets, there's no assigning required, and students have 90 days of access from when they borrow the book in Sora. So for regular class sets, it might be you have a group of specific students who need a specific title starting on a specific date. On demand, it could be, I know we need these books, but I'm not sure when they need or who's going to need them. So both are really great for required classroom reading. But regular class sets could be really good for your small book clubs, specific students or groups, whereas the on-demand set class set could be more for like choice reading or required reading across the district or across your school. So like summer reading, things like that. Next. So how do traditional class sets work? When purchasing a traditional class set, it is required to have the student login information at the time of purchase. So that means you need your list of students and you need their usernames in order to set up this class set for them. The great thing about it, though, is that the titles are automatically sent to the student's account. There's no getting Johnny to log in to find this book to check it out. When they go into Sora at the start date, it is right there for them, ready to go. The nice thing about the traditional sets is it can be scheduled for a future date at the time of purchase. So it does not have to be the day that you purchase the book. You could schedule it for 3 months from now, and lock in that pricing when you're doing your budgeting. Another great thing about using a regular traditional class set is you get automatic reading data with that because it is going to a specific student's login information. You can see who's opened the book, how far have they read in the book, where are they right now? And do we need to do any intervention on a student because they haven't gotten it? Is it they haven't gotten it because they have a print copy, or maybe it's they don't know how to log into Sora, but they haven't asked? So there's a lot of things that you can do with that data, your teachers can do, and it's all automatically set up with this class set. And then kind of good and bad on this side is copies are removed from the collection after the use period. So if you do have that one kid who didn't open their book, unfortunately, after that period is over, the book is gone from your collection. There's no way to get it. So that is kind of a downside to the traditional class sets, which is why we now have the on-demand class sets. Next slide, please. So ODCS, on-demand class set. These titles are only available in the 90-day loan period. With the traditional, some can be available for like a 60-day, or there are a small number that could be up to 6 months. But on-demand class set is just the 90-day loan period. Next. Copies of on-demand class sets are loaded directly into the collection at the time of purchase, so that they are not going to specific students. They are going just into the collection as a whole. Next. Well, but Catherine, if they're going into the collection, how do I know that they make sure that the right students are getting the books they need? Well, because they are going directly in your collection, it does work well with our reserve and bundling feature. Reserve and bundling, what's that? Next slide. Reserve and bundling, think of it as, I had a librarian describe it to me like this, and I love it. It's your own secret library. So what you do is it's kind of like pulling the books you need for a class off the shelf onto a cart to take to that classroom, but in a digital format. So what you do is you go into your collection, you reserve the titles that are for the specific group of students, you bundle them into a collection. So it could be as little as 1 title or 20 titles or more. You claim the bundle and receive a code, then the code gets distributed to the teachers and students who need it. They log into Sora, they have access to the secret collection, and the access period is just determined by you or whoever is setting up the bundle. So it could be that they have 2 weeks to go in and use this bundle and check out their book, or they have like 2 months to go in and pick the book they want. You can also limit how many books a student can check out from a specific bundle. So let's say if it is a choice read library for a certain semester, and the students should be able to only choose one of the titles, you can limit it so they can only check out one title. So that way they're not taking up other copies from other students who need them. Next, please. With on-demand class sets, because you're not going directly to a student, it does not include that reading data that the regular class sets does. But because of that, if you're saying, oh, but I still really want that data, well, now we have the student dashboard. Next slide, please. So what is the student dashboard? The student dashboard is a way for you or your teachers to kind of collect the reading data of your students. So it has a lot of the same data points that the traditional class sets does. So how many books have been opened? What is the time reading? How many sessions of reading do they do? How many achievements have they earned? Things like that. But it works on a student level instead of a title level. So what that means is you could go in for, Johnny Smith and click on them and see all the books they're reading, or just a general overview of they've read this many books, they've read for this amount of time, things like that. Next, please. So if you click into an individual student, you can see their kind of summary. And then if you enable it, you can see their checkout. So let's say they did pick, To Kill a Mockingbird out of their choice reads. You can go in and see, okay, are they reading it? How far have they gotten? Do they need that intervention? And you can see their pleasure reading and their assignments. So it's really just a conversation you should be having with your teachers, your administration, if that's something you want to enable. But it is an option if you do want that reading data. Next, please. The nice thing about on-demand class sets is, unlike traditional class sets, these copies will stay in the collection until they check out. So we have a lot of instances where I talk to a school and they're going to do a all school read. They don't know how many copies they need. So they're going to order 30 copies of the class set. They end up only using 25 copies. Only 25 copies have been checked out for this program. Well, now they have 5 additional copies left in their collection that they can either release to the regular collection or hold on to them if they're going to use them next year. So if you have books that you guys use year over year, this can be a good option because if they don't get used, you get to keep them for the next time you need them. Next, please. So that's kind of the basics of the class sets versus the on-demand class sets. And when we're talking about this, I just wanted to put it out there that it can be a lot trying to determine which titles have a class set version and which don't. Well, that's what your dedicated Sora team is here for. Reach out to us. What we can do is price out these titles for you and then go over them with you and tell you, hey, this might be the best use of your funds because you're trying to use the title like this. And that goes for class sets, for OCOU, those permanent copies, for concurrent use, simultaneous use. We can really walk you through the options that you have to make the most out of your money. Because as we all know, money is getting really tight, especially for libraries these days. So make use of us. We are here to help. We are here to get you what you need for as low a price as we can.
Thank you so much. As we wait for questions to roll in from the audience, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the differences between Sora and Libby. Like, for example, I work in a library that uses Libby, but I can definitely see how some of these features through Sora might be useful in book clubs and things like that. Can you talk about the differences on for public and school and Sora and Libby?
Yeah, we like to think of Libby and Sister as kind of sister apps. A lot of people are familiar, if their readers are familiar with Libby through the public library, they use it for their own pleasure reading. And essentially, Sora is the school equivalent of Libby. So what Libby is to the public library, Sora is to schools. And the biggest difference is that Sora allows for age-appropriate filtering, whereas Libby, you just log in and get access to the full catalog of the library. With Sora, you as the librarian can determine what books should be visible to what students, and it's based on how they authenticate, what they use to sign in. It'll tell the system, I'm a first grader, and it'll only show them the appropriate content. And I'm actually glad that you asked that question because we have now expanded our content access levels as well. So previously you could just only put them into 3 buckets, so to speak. Juvenile, young adult, and adult is the name of what we call them, but essentially elementary, middle, and high school. But now we can do as many as 7 different content access levels. So for those of you or anyone who likes to get really granular with their titles and be like, you know what, that's not a 7th grade book, that's for 8th grade, you can do that. But essentially, Sora is a way to make sure that students are getting age-appropriate content. And that does also work with the public library. So with Sora, you can also use your school credentials to log into the public library, your local public library. And those 3 categorizations will also carry through. So the juvenile, young adult, and adult, and you can make sure that students are not just getting full reign into the library catalog and seeing things they aren't supposed to, because you know that kids love to do that.
Yeah, I would also will add that there are certain features that are available in Sora that are not available in Libby. So like notes and highlights, great thing. Libby has them, but Sora, you can actually export your notes and highlights, not just for the books you have currently checked out, but for your historical checkouts as well. So that's really helpful in the curriculum world, is that you can, I read this book at the beginning of the semester, I have a test coming up on it. Here are all my notes. Here's what I highlighted. Here's what I deemed was important from that book without having to check out the book again.
Another feature that Sora has is a fun gamification with badges. So the first time they check out a book, they can get a badge that says like, "Oh, congratulations, your first checkout." If they check out certain genres, they'll get badges. If they read for a certain amount of time, they'll get badges. So it's just a fun way to keep them reading, keep them motivated.
So for that badging and the gamification, the students get access to that. They can see, the progress they've had. And then does the teacher or the librarian see that as well?
So right now that is just for the student side. So in Sora, students can see like their progression, their badges, and all of their customization in there. But they can always share it with their teachers as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice opportunity to bring the digital into the real world classroom. Like, put your sticker up on the board when you get
Yep.
your first badge and things like that. Do you have any other suggestions on ways to connect the digital use to in-person classroom, like using the digital library alongside print books or, physical content?
Yeah. Sorry, I'll go first. That's okay. This is where I think some of like our subscriptions come in handy, like especially the magazines, with how many teachers in their classroom will use like articles and whatnot from different publications. They can do the same thing, but in Sora, and have it so everyone's looking at the same article at the same time, without having to like photocopy or what have you. They can just pull it up right on their like tablet or their Chromebook or whatever, and read along together. So
I've also had librarians tell me how they've like used when they have like a puzzle time during their class where they'll set the kids up doing like digital puzzles on the computer. And while they're doing that, they have them open up Sora and listen to an audiobook, or just, getting that integrated into like some of the downtime is like being able to listen to the story, or even just like putting up a book on your smartboard if you have one, and reading it together, like comics, magazines, picture books, all those kinds of things.
We have a question here. Real nuts and bolts. How do you get Sora? If you've been interested in this, if you're a teacher, if you're a school librarian, is this something that you can embark on your own? Does it need to come from the administrative level?
Yeah.
Who specifically should they reach out to?
It's best if it comes from an administrator or someone who does have the power to sign off on those things. But if you want to get your foot in the door, the best way to do that is to go to overdrive.com/discover Sora. That is the one-stop shop where you can, submit your inquiry. You can take a look at some of the subscription packages. That is going to be your catch-all for getting started. So take a look at that website. I know that on Franklin's slides with the QR code, that does also take you to it as well.
Is that okay? So if you want to advance a slide, we can get that, get those contact info bits up there.
Perfect.
There we go. Okay.
Beautiful.
So what about audiobooks? There's this, I love the idea of the classroom sets. Can you add audiobooks to a classroom set? Can you have a classroom set that's all audio?
So
Audiobook editors
audiobooks
everywhere want to know.
Yeah. In the digital world, ebooks and audiobooks are still separate. A lot of people have the assumption that because I have the ebook, I should just have the audiobook too, or I should be able to get it read aloud to me, things like that. But they are separate products, separate files, things like that. There are audiobooks available in the class set lending model. However, I would say it's probably like 75–80% ebooks. But that's where your digital content librarian can come in and kind of help you. Again, just looking to see what lending models do we have available for you? What is the best use of your budget? Things like that. Erin mentioned in her section, like audiobooks and CPC is really nice because you have that flexibility to add a lot of titles, but not pay upfront for them. A lot of audiobooks are in the one copy, one user. So they while they are more expensive because of the productionization of them, they do stay forever in most cases. And with that as well as a lot of those publishers are also adding the audiobooks in that MAC-U, that 100 concurrent checkouts too. So you can get one ebook to a lot of kids at the same time. So again, Ebooks are great. We love them. They can be a little daunting price-wise. Reach out to your team. That's why we're here to help you kind of navigate that pricing.
Can you expand a little bit on what is the process when you reach out to a team? You guys have presented so many different really wonderful resources and plans that you have set up, preset collections and guidance and things like that. So if your school has Sora and you find yourself in need of some of these resources, but you're not sure where to begin, which of these is the right one? Like, can you walk me through the experience of if I'm in that situation, how do I reach out to Overdrive? Who am I connected with? What does that process look like?
Yeah, we recently did a little bit of restructuring of our team. So the best way to find out who you should contact if you are an Overdrive partner is to go to the support tab in Marketplace. It lists all our little pictures of who you can contact. And when you have an account, you have an account manager that you can just reach directly out to, or you might have like Catherine listed, you might have Franklin listed, and then you'll also get a product support person as well. But that is the best area to look for when you don't know where to start, but you know that you have Overdrive. Typically from there, your account manager or whatever team you reach out to will get your question to the right person, whether it is to the digital content librarian to look at pricing or build a cart. If you have a technical question, it'll get to the right person there. So that's your best option. And Franklin, you unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to chime in with anything else.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for my team, working with California, we always say feel free to CC any or all of your team on your emails, so that way, like, we can all see it, we can all figure out who best would be able to answer that. You're never gonna bother us by reaching out to us. That's what we're here for. We're a resource for you. So yeah, just feel free to always reach out to us. We're constantly doing trainings and walkthroughs for schools, so we're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and I always tell them my territory, like, if you reach out to me and someone else on the team answers, it's fine. Like, we're happy to direct your question to the right person. So I might not respond to you, but another team member will.
I like to tell the librarians that we work with that we are essentially them on the inside. We are an extra set of hands. Speaking on our digital content librarian team, we are an extra set of hands to do whatever you want to do with your collection, whether it's adding titles, curating the content you already have. We just want to get books into the hands or on the screens of kids, and that's our ultimate goal.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I think that is really reassuring that Overdrive does staff so many librarians and educators, folks who really understand the application of your services. Not that folks that come from a marketing perspective or a technology perspective don't, but it's really nice to be able to say, I've been in the classroom, I've been in the library, and I have seen what you're seeing, and I understand why you need what you're asking for. So I think that's a real strength that the Sora app brings.
Yeah, everyone on our librarian team has gotten their master's degree in library science. So, and we've all had either school or library experience. So we're boots on the ground with you at some point in our life.
That's so great. I really do love that. So a lot of the time, I think we think of Sora as useful for the younger age range, but Sora can be used all the way up through, would you say, middle school, high school? Can you offer any tips or suggested plans if we have for our audience members who are coming from the older end of the school spectrum? Like, what might they look for?
Yeah, so there's content available for all grade bands, right? It's all ages, from pre-K up to high school. as my account manager likes to say, Sora creates lifelong readers. We pass the torch to Libby once they graduate, right? So yeah, there's definitely content in there. Magazines and comics are a big one for high school and upper middle school. The packages for like the upper grade comics package is the biggest. There's a lot more content in there. And again, it's all like that name recognition that's really popular. So that's a great way to start if you're kind of like, I want to dip my toe into like digital for high school, but I'm not sure where to start. We all know that graphic novels, comics, all of that circulate really well. So it's a great area to start. I also like to recommend audiobooks as a point of focus for high schools. As we know, high school students have a lot on their plate between classes, homework, extracurriculars, part-time jobs, etc. So being able to like pop in an audiobook and listen to that as you're doing everything else really makes it a lot more approachable for high school students to read. So.
There are things you can do as well on how Sora is displayed when you first log in to make it more high school centric. Like Erin was mentioning, leveling the titles, things like that. Kids can read down, they can't read up. So making collections that are just for high school that you can put at the top. So right when they log in, they're seeing books that they're interested in is one really great way to get their immediate attention, things like that. Also, like just getting them involved in it. We do a kind of contest every year called School Stars, where you can win content credit for your school by telling us how you promote it. And last year's was the high school students made like a commercial for Sora, and it was so much fun. And so just getting your kids involved, and maybe your high school students help you plan something to promote it to middle school and elementary school, or can you have a teen advisory board where you can have your students like recommend titles to you, things like that you can look at adding, or just getting them involved with the Sora process. It really is an all ages kind of platform where your kindergartners can use it, your high schools are using it. They're getting different things out of it, but they're still getting those books and that reading.
Yeah, I love that idea of a teen advisory board. As a former teen services librarian myself, it was always so great when I would have teenagers interested in seeing what's coming out, learning about different new services and new opportunities for digital involvement with the library. And I think the other thing that does is it then provides students with an opportunity to understand what does our digital media landscape look like, that when you're not just pulling a pirated PDF off of the internet, which we clearly do not want them doing. This kind of shows them this is the way to do it. This is how we approach digital media in a professional adult way.
We also have a feature called Shelf Talkers where you can like give like a little review or recommend a title, specific titles. And I've had librarians say like if student like over the summer, if they reach their reading goal, they kind of win the opportunity to put a shelf talker on a book. Like those just kind of little ways to get them involved.
Yeah, I like the idea of using Sora as a summer reading connection through school. So you're not having to recreate the wheel. It takes so much time and energy to put a summer reading program together, but it sounds like you guys have done that.
Yeah, we're available. The Sora is available 24/7, 365 days a year. Your students have access to Sora over summer. I think a lot of people forget that, but they can check out books still. And we usually provide a great collection of free books, simultaneous use books for summer that your students will have access to as well. So it really can be used for that summer reading component too.
Yeah, and save the problem of the book getting left on the airplane or dropped in the pool. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. It was a wonderful presentation. Every time I attend and participate in a Sora or Overdrive presentation, you have more content and more more services, and it's just wonderful, I think, the way that you continue to respond to user needs and build your service. So thank you for that. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Tomorrow, all attendees will be receiving an email that has links to today's slide presentation, a certificate of completion, and our video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for the upcoming ones that you see here. Thank you so much for joining us for today's program. One more huge thank you to our presenters and to our sponsor, Overdrive. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.